build a vehicle to travel. Now you know where you can travel, where you can go, where this journey can take you. So now you're going to learn this. So it's very important that you listen, you know where you can go, where the route can travel to. And without further ado, let's start my discussion.
Sorry? I'll probably will do, yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ayyuhan nabi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Is it me or has the numbers halved? Inshallah. So, inshallah, the session that I'm going to deliver is the theory of the Mi'raj. Now, it's a high-level session. What do I mean by high-level session? It's not going to go into details. It's broadly an overview. So, it's something that you can relax in this session. It's not going to be detailed. It's just to go through a high-level overview of what the story of the Mi'raj is. But before I get to that, let me just ask you, brothers that are here and have been sitting here for the last 2 days. Is it Riyadh? Riyan. Mashallah. I know your name now, so I'm going to pick on you. Yes? So the question that I have, and this is to you, what's the purpose? So you're here to what? See and? Taste. So say you see and taste, inshallah, and if you haven't seen and you haven't tasted, then you need to either give feedback or you should speak to one of the ustads. Because you're here, you've given up 2 days of your lives to be here to achieve a purpose. So you should demand that purpose from us. Yes? So we give you time, and the expectation is if you listen and you're here for those 2 days, you should have that expectation that actually I want to see and taste before I leave here. That changes it changes the mindset, it changes the dynamic. But let's say, inshallah, as some of you are experiencing, you're seeing and you're tasting. So what after that? What happens after that? Anyone? Can someone acknowledge it as part of it? Maybe not you, someone that, if you're doing something, maybe one of the other brothers can just pass the microphone around. Inshallah. So when you say acknowledge it as part of your day-to-day life, what do you mean by that?
Acknowledge it as basically, usually, like today I was experiencing I told the ustad before that, the 2 rakats.
Yes, the spiritual salah.
Usually I'd be doing my salah and I wouldn't be thinking that, I'd say, imagining that in depth. I wouldn't be going to this other realm usually, and I'd be feeling uncomfortable praying. So putting that into your mindset, Allah's with you, Allah can see you, you know what I'm trying to say? And it's amazing, you know what I mean?
So, but in terms of, okay, so you've got that. So for you, the takeaway has been the salah. But I'm asking people generally. Okay, fine. You see, you taste. So what? Where does that take us? What's going to happen next? G? Someone said. Sorry. You do your amals.
Yeah, so like the Tawshi,
Yeah.
the Muraqbah, the prayer salah, the do good deeds, zikr, Muraqbah, yeah.
Okay, what about more than that? Is there anything else that you want? Sorry?
Carry this to the entire life.
Carry
what we got here.
Yes.
Entire life.
Carry it through your entire life. Yeah, I'm not saying any of these answers are wrong, but I just want to understand, because each of you, it's not going to be the best just to come in and say I've seen and tasted and that's it. It's
going to help us to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ah, now that's interesting. So, Ali, did you have something to say? Oh, sure. The uncle at the front was saying, or the brother at the front was saying, that it will help you get closer to Allah. How?
By practicing what we learned.
Okay. Yourself?
Yeah, it understand your iman.
Strengthens your iman.
Become your yaqeen.
Okay, good. I mean, they're all answers.
Because before you were just yaqeen.
Yeah.
Heard about these things, but you start seeing it.
Gee.
Your mind.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It's supposed to impact or have an impact on your iman. Because we know how. Because we know the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's recited in the Quran. He asked Allah. What did he ask Allah? What did Ibrahim alayhi salam ask Allah? He wanted to experience. He wanted to see how the resurrection will happen. Did Ibrahim alayhi salam not believe? No, of course he did. He absolutely believed. He's a prophet. They have the highest iman. Yet even he said that he wanted to see. So we have the story. He took the 4 birds. He nurtured them. He cut them. He mixed them up. And then he put them in 4 corners and he called them. And it increased his iman. It increased him to get closer to Allah. Now, so this is an interesting piece. Because did the Prophet ﷺ go on a mi'raj? Yes. Now let's go to the next phase. Because the Prophet ﷺ went on a mi'raj. He saw people in hellfire. He saw people in heaven. He came back. Some of what happened we know about. Only some. We don't know all the discussions that took place between Allah and Allah's beloved, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we know some. So he came back, and it made him even more steadfast in delivering the message, in helping people. Because he had what we call a level of spiritual maturity. What did he have? Spiritual maturity. So the question is, what is spiritual maturity? Because we're all having spiritual experiences, but have we matured? So what do we normally say when someone's matured? It's when they become baligh. Yes? So when someone becomes baligh, we say, when they reach puberty, we say they're mature. They've entered a new phase, the new understanding. That's why at that time, from an Islamic fiqh perspective, that's when the pen is now on them, i.e. they can do right, they can do wrong. Before that, the pen's lifted. So same with the spiritual world, you can reach what we call spiritual maturity, i.e. you've had these spiritual experiences, but have you actually become spiritually mature? So then the question is, what does that mean? What is spiritual maturity? And the mashaykhs and the teachers speak about different levels of spiritual maturity. But the bit that I want to leave with you all here is that just like with anything, you can take knowledge. So we take Maulana Misbah. I mean, I've travelled with him by the grace of Allah, and so I class him as my travel companion. We went to Morocco together, went to Fez together, and they say that when you travel with someone, then you know that person. Why? Because you wake at the same time. You get to see people not when they're in the nice phase. You get to see them. And by the grace of Allah, I have a very high respect for Maulana Misbah. He's given us his home, he's given us his keys, literally to come and be here. That's not a small thing, It's something that I take in my heart as I had gratitude. But the point is, so Maulana Misbah holds knowledge. He has a lot in his mind. But how is that reflected in terms of creation? How is when you become spiritually mature, have spiritual experiences, how is that reflected in creation? And the story that our mashaykhs give us, they say that there was a sheikh, I think it was the founder of the Chishti Tariqa, his name does not come to me anymore at this stage. And they say that one of the leaders at that time, he asked to have some barakah or something from him. Yeah, he wanted to know what was happening in his kingdom. And they go that this sheikh, this mashaykh, he gave him, the ramal that you have, to give that as a barakah to this leader. And it was given to him, and they say that when he would put this on his forehead, he had the ability to see what was happening in his kingdom. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Nizamuddin Awliya rahimullah. Now he took this barakat, and he was able to see what's happening in the kingdom now. And when he saw that, he also got to see the sins that people were committing. So he initiated his army and soldiers to go and arrest these people, deal with this. This got back to the blessed awliya. And he sent a message to say, this isn't the reason why I gave you this. I gave you this so that you can see the hardships that people were going through, and you could help them and you can facilitate for them. Now that's interesting when you think about it, because he had been given this special gift, but how you use those gifts is really, really important. There's having knowledge, and sometimes when we have knowledge, we want to, so it's like when I remember when I first did a bit of fiqh, then you have that danda all the time. Oh, that's not right, this isn't right, that's not right. That's not a level of, that's not maturity in that sense. Because then, so the point that I'm saying to each and every single one of you here is that you are having spiritual experiences, which is good, which will have an impact on Iman, there'll be a boost. But the question really then is for you to take it to the next level. And if I'm saying that there is another level, like there's a level of spiritual maturity, when your spirit, your ruh has actually matured, and there's signs for that, then you should be asking, well, what are those? How do I allow this experience to take me to that next level? And the mashaykhs, they go, like I mentioned, they say 20, but just to mention a few, and they said that one of the key ones is that you start having empathy for other people, for other creation. That you are not subject to your anger and your moods, so that you are not slaves to them, that you can overlook the mistakes that others make, overlook the mistakes or the wrongs that people do to you. This isn't me speaking at like a high level, Sufiya. This is the reality of our Prophet, is it not? Is that not his example? And that's what they speak about. So why do I mention that now? Because I'm going to go through the spiritual mirage, the theory of it. But it's just to have something in your back of your mind to think, actually, after I come out of this retreat, there has to be something that's going to resonate. I have to be able to go home, not go home and say, Subhanallah, I had mushahida, I saw angels, so now therefore I'm the king. No. It's going back home and thinking that actually, just when the Prophet ﷺ experienced Miraj and he saw what was happening, it made him have even more desire to help people, not have even more desire to rule over people. Yeah? So inshallah, I'll go through the slides, inshallah. So as we know, the Prophet ﷺ there's two aspects to his life. There's the physical or the outward aspect. What do we call this? This is the seerah. Yes, so many of you may have studied the seerah. This is the life of the Prophet ﷺ as we see it, i.e. as it was narrated to us. And from that, we learn how we should, the do's and don'ts of Islam, the fiqh elements of Islam, what we should refrain from and what should we do. That all comes from the physical aspects of Prophet ﷺ. And then we mentioned, or some of the brothers mentioned the previous things that, and I'm point two, a person is tested through their 7 bodily organs. And we take that from the physical aspect of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and that's how we have that physical journey. And what is that physical journey? Here we are. So you did this with one of the brothers. Does this look familiar? The physical journey, i.e. you understand the life of the Prophet, and from that you understand your journey, i.e. the journey of man, where you came from, the alim arwah. Yes? I need to be able to see that this has been done. So does that make sense? If I was to ask you a question on this, would you be able to answer? Yeah. So the alim arwah, and then from that they say you have certain conditions that you have to, or preconditions you have to understand. You have to have the right belief. What is the right belief? Are you having the right aqidah? I don't like using that word aqidah in Pakistani circles, Asian circles. I like let's say the right theology. Yes, you have to have the right belief. That you believe in Allah, you believe in the angels, and so forth. And then you have to understand the fiqh. Why? Because that tells you the do's and don'ts, your basic day-and-day living of Islam. Then they go, another precondition is what? To have repentance, to do tawbah. And there's a method or a way that you do repentance to Allah. And then finally you have to have mujahidah. What do I mean by mujahidah? That the fact is that when you go along this path, are you going to fall? Yes, you're going to trip up. So that's where you need steadfastness. Because what does steadfastness mean? It means that when you trip up, you learn to get up, basically. So it's not to give up on the first hurdle. When you commit a sin, whether you have whatever that mistake might be, there has to be that ability in your mind to think, oh, this is not the end of the world. Because you have people that have this defeatist attitude, oh, I'm going to go to Jahannam. Astaghfirullah, you know. How can you, to have that kind of concept, I can't get out of this, I drink, I do this, and you're thinking, no, there's a lack of mujahida there. The fact that, and also, there's a real disrespect to Allah, and because Allah's quality is mercy. Allah's not subject to anything. He can forgive whoever He wants to forgive. So that kind of so you have to have that as a precondition, the ability to get up. And then the brothers mentioned that, and then you go through these physical elements, i.e., then you go to the purification of the tongue. And when we say the word purification, very simple. All you're doing is you're making the tongue give up that which is harmful and to adopt that which is good. Yeah. So all you're trying to do, and the whole purpose, forget sheets or anything like that. If you just look big picture, I always like to go big picture. All you're doing is, because everyone says we want to follow the Sunnah, yes. And as I think Ustad Abid was saying, that it's easy to buy these clothes, very, very easy. I could tell you the website I bought it from as well, and buy the hat and say, but the Sunnah is so much more than that. But so the question is, when someone says follow the Sunnah, because these things you hear, so the question that you should always ask is, well, how do I follow the Sunnah? So we say, okay, let's take it one by one. Let's make your tongue follow the Sunnah. So we say to you, we ask you, stop your tongue backbiting, stop your tongue swearing. Why? Because did the Prophet ﷺ backbite? La, absolutely not. Did the Prophet ﷺ use his ears or eyes in a wrong way? No. So bit by bit, all you're doing is you're conforming. You're making your tongue like the Prophet. You're making your hands like the Prophet ﷺ. You're making your eyes, your feet. So before you know it, your entire body is functioning in a sunnah way. The clothing and everything that can come after. But the main thing is now you've got your body following the seerah of the Prophet physically. And then we talk about the mind. Exactly the mind of the Prophet. And what was the Prophet's mind like? It was always that when he met someone, the really, really basic at the high level is when he met someone, he always thought, how can I benefit this person? Full stop. That's it. To always meet someone and think, how do I benefit this person? How can I make this person's life easier? How can I make this person's life better? And there's nothing better than what? Taking their soul away from Jahannam or the Ruh and putting it into heaven. That's what he was always thinking. How can I benefit someone? And then we come to purification of the soul, like having the inclination to do good. And then when you have enlightenment, when you start reaching these objectives, physical ones, that is you start giving preference to the command of Allah. What do I mean? You should always have an example in your mind, that when the adhan of Fajr happens, you have two choices. Carry on sleeping in your nice warm bed, or, because at that point you have a choice, don't you? You have a choice that Allah is saying, come and pray, and your body is saying, I want to carry on sleeping. So whatever you choose to do at that moment, if you get up and pray, you've preferred who? You've preferred Allah. Very simple. You've given Him preference over yourself. And then the same with the Prophet ﷺ. And then it comes compassion upon creation. That's a thing that keeps coming up again. The spiritual maturity I was speaking about. Having compassion on others. And the easiest way to answer that, what is compassion and creation, is very simple. Islam functions on two bases. It gives you rights and it gives you duties. What does it give you? Rights and duties. Yeah. But this is really interesting. But we're a duties-based deen. What do I mean by that? The focus for us is that what is your duty? You fulfill your duty. Even though we're given rights to protect us, that's Islam, alhamdulillah, is just. But we're not a rights-based society. Our deen, you don't exact your rights. So if between husband and wife, the focus is on the husband, you fulfill your duties. The focus on the wife is you fulfill your duties. Yes, you have rights, but that's not the point. You don't exact them. But we live in a society which is what? It's right-based, isn't it? Your rights as a consumer, your rights as a customer, your rights as a patient. So we're brought up to always demand our rights. But actually Islam is saying, no, having compassion and creation means that I know what my duties are. My duties as a father, my duties as an employee, my duties as an employer, whatever they are, I should fulfill those duties, and not demand the rights of others. That's having ultimate compassion upon creation. And then presence of Allah. All of this begins to lead you to having cognizance that Allah is always with you. That's partly why you're doing these spiritual experiences. Why? Because when you begin to understand that actually when I eat my food, shaitan's there, so I have to say Bismillah to ward him off. It has more meaning. You know, I know that I have a qarina, like a jinn next to me that's inviting me to evil. So you begin, these things become into your mind and you're able to become more cognizant or conscious of Allah. And eventually then we pray that through doing all of this, that Allah will have His fadl upon us and be pleased with us, inshallah. So this is just the whole thing. So this is what the physical aspect of the life of the Prophet. Now I said that was one aspect. What's the other aspect? Can someone read for me from the board? Hamza.
Spiritual inner aspect is apex, is Ascension or the Miraj,
Sorry.
the night journey to heavens and the Lord of heavens of Prophet Muhammad.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah, very well. That's the second aspect of the life of the Prophet. So we had the physical aspect, which is about how the Prophet lived his life physically. And now this is the other aspect, i.e. we want to follow the Prophet in every way possible. And this is what we're learning now, is the spiritual aspect, i.e. the Prophet went on a miraj. He went on it physically and spiritually. We go on it spiritually. And that's the piece. And that was the apex. What does apex mean? Someone tell me. The highest, yes, absolutely. You know, the pinnacle of something. And can there be anything more higher than pinnacle than being before who? Allah Azza wa Jal, Jalla Jalalahu. To be able to speak to your Creator, to be able to see upon your Creator. And it goes, so here it says, just as the biography or the life of the Prophet we know, there's also the same in terms of the miraj. Now if you notice, there's one thing, I'm not going to read from the slides because I can just give you that if that was going to be the case, but I'm going to just give you an overview. That's the purpose of this. Oh, that's gone off. It's not. Oh, it's okay, it doesn't have to turn it on, I'm just saying, I just realised I was checking. Oh, okay. No, if you want to leave it off. So, and then we mentioned, so you were told that there's different levels of what? Of yaqeen. Yes? And we know that even our father Ibrahim alayhi salam, he also wanted to enhance his yaqeen. Because sometimes people will ask you the question, why come to this? Why? You know, more reality in Allah. And that talks about the different degrees. And this is just the examples. They say you have knowledge of something, and then something that you see, or you know something's on fire, and then the actually experiencing fire, the fact that you see the heat. But I'm going to go through that. And this is speaking about, is he our prophet? Is he the prophet of Allah? Did the Prophet say, I'm here as a prophet for all of creation? Did that just include the first generation, or does it include us? It includes us, doesn't it? So we have that right. We have that haqq. You know, we can ask, we can seek. But we've got so used to thinking about it as in storybooks that we forget to ask ourselves, actually, why can't I see this? Why am I is it just for me to read the books of Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani? Or actually, can I experience this for myself? Yes, you can experience it for yourself, absolutely. You know, if the likes of Abu Lahab and Abu Jahil had the physical ziyarah of the Prophet ﷺ, and they were sinful people, they were enemies of Islam, why can't people that are in his ummah have the experience and the presence of the Prophet ﷺ? So that's the second objective, and the purpose is it allows you to engage and follow the sunnah, to see what the Prophet ﷺ did for us. It increases that love, because the more you love him, the more you will follow him. Very, very simple. That's why we speak of Umar radiallahu anh, Al-Faruq. Why was he Al-Faruq? Why was he the person that distinguished between good and bad? And there's that hadith that everyone focuses on. But it's amazing if you think about it. When he said to the Prophet ﷺ that, Ya Rasulullah, I can love you more than my parents. I can love you more than anything. But I can't say that I love you more than myself. Now I find this hadith amazing because, remember, he is truthful. One thing that hadith tells you is that the love for the self is very high. You know, he's saying that I can love you more than my parents. When Umar radiallahu anh is saying that, Believe you me, that applies to us as well. That he is telling me, Majid, that you love yourself so much. Yeah, the love for the self is very, very high. That's why we have this, in English, you have this survival instinct. Humans, people, you hear these great stories that someone got trapped in a mountain, their arm got trapped, and they used a penknife to cut off their arm just to survive, because the love for the self is so high. And then what does the Prophet say? It goes, then your iman won't be complete. Now you and I might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, to love someone more than your parents, is that a small love? No, it's a great love to be able to love someone more than your parents. So why would his iman not be complete? Very simple, because if you have a greater love, then one day a circumstance will come in your life where you will have a choice of following the Prophet or the thing that you love. That's why we say loving the Prophet more than anything has to apply, because when that clash happens, whichever has the greater love, you will follow that. So if you love money more than the Prophet ﷺ, a time will come when you have the choice to follow the Sunnah or follow the way against Sunnah, which will be. So if your love for the other is higher, you'll follow that. That's very simple. That's why they say the love of the Prophet should be the utmost. But it doesn't happen overnight. It has to be nurtured. You have to learn about the Prophet. You have to experience the Prophet. Speak to the Prophet. All of this helps in that sense. And then we have the third objective. So what the spiritual experience should do, it should give you the reality of what? That this dunya is a test. That every single person planted on this earth, Hamza, Ali, all of you that are here, Ramazan, myself, we're all here as a test. And then it's to understand that the creation are just testing my reaction. That's all it is. And therefore, that should engender more love. That actually, this person, this anger that they're having towards me, I shouldn't let that affect me. I can see that there's bigger out there. I can see that Allah has given me so much more. That if the Prophet of Allah, where did it come from, his compassion? And the fact that people could abuse him, and he just smile, he'd just carry on. Because he knows there's something bigger and greater out there. And that's what we're trying to do. We're allowing the spiritual experience to give us that objective as well. And the fourth, he does all the above to seek the end of all ends, which is the pleasure of Allah. And it says here, and this is really interesting, and you do not seek appreciation, reward, acknowledgement, compensation and praise from the creation. When you start doing things for Allah, that's it. You're not looking, the ego becomes secondary. I'm not doing this to get praise. I know in my heart that actually it's for Allah. I'm doing it for Allah. I'm doing it to please Allah. That's not easy either. When you do a good deed, if you give money to charity, the self wants people to know. It's not always about boasting, but again, it goes back to the love of the self. So now, I'll talk to you. So now, some of this will be familiar because we've been doing it. So the prophetic ascension. So what do? We do purification. It's got here the 11 spiritual entities. How many do we purify? 7. So what are we talking? So what are those spiritual entities? They are what we refer to as the. But what are those spiritual entities? Lataif, yeah, the spiritual centers that we talk about. That's what this is saying. It mentions 11 here. We obviously do 7. Then we go to whether it's to Fez, Sheikh Abdul Aziz Dabari, for the Prophet for Masjid Nabi, you go to the Kaaba, you go to Masjid al-Aqsa, and then we enter the realm of the Barzakh. Now this is what the different stations that I'm going to speak to you about. So they go, the realm of the Barzakh, this is just the different levels there. So you have the first sky, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. The asma, the skies are different from paradise. There's a distinction between the two. And then you have the heavenly Kaaba, which is known as Baytul Ma'mur. And so you have all these stations, but this is still within the realm of the Barzakh, as we say. And then we come on to the realms of of paradise, of the heavens. So you have the Lot tree. What level is that? The first heaven. and then the second heaven. So we've got known as Na'im, and then you've got Ma'wa, the station of presence. These are different heavens now. The fourth heaven. You have the fifth heaven, and I'll explain to you what the stations are shortly. You have the sixth heaven, and then you have the seventh, and then you have the eighth heaven, and then you have the divine chair, the kursi. Yes, these are all the different levels in terms of one can ascend when going to Allah. Like I said, you don't have to memorize any of this. It's just literally just to give you an overview of what is out there. So much more. And then after you come to the divine throne and the Arsh of Allah, what do they say about the Arsh of Allah? It is, of all the creation of Allah, it is physically the biggest. Yes? That's what they say of the Arsh of Allah. How that manifests itself, I don't know. We don't know. And then after the Arsh of Allah, they go, there's 9 different levels, different manifestations. And then you come to these other stations, like the divine manifestation, mercy, the stations and doors, and then you have 70 veils, and these are veils of light. Before you come to something else. I'm going to focus on the stations in a second, actually. Then you have the station of excellence. Then you come to the house of Allah, and then it goes beyond. It goes beyond that. Then you have stations of Abadiyah. This is servitude, and then you have the station of Abudiyah. This is inner servitude. So, and then you have the station Abuda, which is absolute servanthood. Now, what was it the Prophet ﷺ said? That the highest station for him was to be what? An Abid. He just wanted to be a slave of Allah. And Abdullah. Now, these different stations, they manifest themselves. So when you go on a spiritual mirage, you can go to different stations. And where you are in that station and you receive blessings, or you receive an understanding of what it means to become an Abid in a different way. You can go to, for example, the station of mercy, and you can just absorb the light of the manifestations of mercy. These are all, it's not something that you can theoretically comprehend. You're going to go on that journey, and that's when you begin to understand it. So that gives you a nutshell, and that's just from the spiritual centers at the bottom, and that's just going up to the heavens. Yeah, and like I said, even then there's much more to see. And they say that when you do the Mi'raj, on the way back, so you ascend, you go to the spiritual heavens, and sometimes people will notice that they get given gifts. Yeah, so when you're coming back, when you've done this Miraj, because who was given a gift when they went on their Miraj? The Prophet of Allah. He wanted to, and not only that, he wanted to get a gift, and he wanted to give that gift to who? To us, to his ummah. You know.
So can I just ask, you had a gift of Kujur?
Yes.
Is that what you're on about?
So you get different gifts, yes, spiritual gifts. That's what they are. But the gift I'm going to speak about now is that as you come back, you know, some of the gifts they say you can get a gift of the station of prayer. So these are things that will make that ibadat or that worship entirely different for you. Yes, whether it's in charity, like giving of zakat, whether it's fasting, dua, whatever you might do, these different things, manifestations, will mean something to you. Today you had a glimpse of what? The spiritual salah. Yeah, how you were effectively given a tool today to make your salah like the salah of the awliya. That from the opening Allahu Akbar to the closing Salam, you can be in the constant hazuri of who? Of Allah. That's what you were given the practice to do now. You know, and is that something again that's achievable? Of course it is, because we have people like Imam Ghazali that used to say that his fiqh position has a. You know, people always talk about Illumiddin and some of his other books, yes, but he was a faqih first and foremost. That's what he was, and he was. Some say Shafi became Maliki, whatever. That's a separate point. But his fiqh position was that your salah is not valid or is invalid if at any time between Allahu Akbar and the closing salam you are absent from the huzuri Allah. So what does that mean for you and me? Remember, what does fiqh? Fiqh is to do with the zari, like the outward. You know? He's saying, forget about acceptance, that's between you and Allah. He's saying just from validity. You're like your wudu, you have to have valid wudu for your salah to be valid, yes? He's saying, and then then within your salah you have fara'id, you have wajibs for your salah to be valid. He's saying that one of the rukns, the conditions, is that you have to have constant huzuri, and you're thinking, how is that possible? I struggle to have it for a portion of my salah, forget about the whole thing. Now you know how, because if you're on a spiritual salah, if you are doing a spiritual salah from the moment you're there, Masah Nabi, all of this is going through your salah, then you're always in the presence. That's where that becomes achievable. That's why that's achievable. And equally, that's what I'm saying, when you come back, you can get these different gifts. Again, station of sunnah, station of presence, station of mercy, and this will mean different for you, i.e. how it's going to be manifested. And they say that, so you have these blessings, and you come back, and they say, and just focus on the bottom, it goes, you get given these gifts and then serving, and you come to the station of dawah. Now, station of dawah is one of the highest stations, because you're calling people to what? To Allah. Yeah. Now, they go, the greatest da'i is who? Allah himself. Because he calls who? The prophets. And then the prophets call us, don't they? So the sunnah of dawah isn't just the sunnah of the prophets, it's the sunnah of who? Of Allah Azza wa Jal, Jalla Jalalahu. That's the sunnah, that's the maqam of dawah. That's why it's such a great station, a great maqam. That when you be able to facilitate, when you can do dawah for others. And this just shows you, so on one side, you have the, so how was it on the slide? On the right hand side, you have what? What aspect of the life of the Prophet ﷺ? The physical aspect. Who said that? Yeah, mashallah, good. It was a new person, I just want to check. Yeah, and then the other side, you have the spiritual aspect. Yeah, but where are they both trying to get you to? To the pleasure of Allah. That's ultimately the destination, whichever way you do it. Now, the bit on the right hand side is a bit that you're commanded. Yes, that's the bit that you have to do. You have to get the purification right. Yeah, the bit on the left hand side, that spiritual mirage, that's just to help you, the motivation to get you there. You know, to have those spiritual gifts, to help you, to have that spiritual maturity, to help others and so forth. So they go hand in hand. Those both of those sides. Inshallah. So I'm just going to leave that there. I think we're going to have rest time shortly. But before we conclude, does anyone have any questions? Not just on this, but on anything that they've experienced so far. Because we're coming to the close now, and I will keep going back because it's not by coincidence that certain things happen. And when Maulana Misbah said that point about time, I found that really, really important, because you've given up 2 days of your time to be here, you know, and it really is like a sword. If you can benefit from this time, if you can utilize it properly, then that time will benefit you, i.e. like a sword is to your advantage if you use it. But if you don't benefit from the time that's been given to you, then it can be used against you. And the last thing you want to be is an ibra or an example like those of Fir'aun and Nimrud and so forth. You want to be someone that's advancing all the time, inshallah. So I'm going to leave it just on that. If anyone has any questions, inshallah, just raise your hands and Brother Jabbar will come with the microphone. Can I just check, has everyone that's here, especially the new people, have you all had a spiritual experience so far? If you haven't, put your hand up. If you have, put your hand up. See, I have to do that because sometimes people just leave their hands down anyway. So if you have, Ramazan, you've had a spiritual experience, why isn't your hand up?
Yeah, I've got my
Okay, fine.
Can I?
You know, in terms of, according to what I've heard throughout my lifetime, people say, when you die, there's...
I haven't died yet, but go on.
When you die, there's a barzakh,
Jeep.
where obviously that's where the souls be until the day of resurrection,
Yes.
until the day of judgment in this dunya. Obviously, it's better to go before you see the day of resurrection. But what I'm trying to say is, according to what I've been brought up and stuff, why did they say that the souls return to the earth? I've never understood that. On Thursdays, they say do a dua, put food down, like a dawat and stuff. And I don't understand like the logic. I don't understand how souls can come to the dunya when they're in the birth. It
Okay.
doesn't make sense.
So let me answer what I can answer, and I won't answer what I can't answer. Yes? So I can't answer the thing about the Haddam. There's people that are much more qualified than I. But one thing I can answer, because the brother touched on a wider point, which is the concept of the barzakh. So firstly, what is a barzakh? It's the
Life of the great.
life of the great. It's the intermediate world. What does intermediary mean? It's an in-between world. In between what? Yes, between this life that we're in, then you have an intermediary section called the barzakh, and then you have ultimately the hereafter, yes? Whether that's eternal damnation or eternal salvation, whatever that may be. Now, the brother Ramazan touches on a really good point. So when someone dies, they go to the barzakh, the intermediary world. And broadly speaking, very high level, that's normally broken down into 3 stations. There's your barzakh can be like a Riyadh al-Jannah, i.e. a garden of paradise. It can be a place where you just sleep, or it can be a pit of hell where you're being punished. Yeah. So those 3 aspects happen in the barzakh. Now, certain spirits in the barzakh have the ability to come back to the earth, i.e. that's partly what you're doing when you're having a spiritual experience. You're going or you're communicating with a barzakh. But also the likes of Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Dabag rahimullah, they mention it in their books that the people of the barzakh can continue to give messages and continue to give guidance to the people of this earth. So that answers some of your question in terms of the ability for spirits to come and go. Yeah? Not all spirits, some spirits. And it's in the barzakh that certain spirits also, the awliya can sit with the awliya, they can sit with the prophets, they can sit with the companions. That can all happen. So that has a reality. So that answers some of your question, i.e. the ability to go between, the spirit's ability to go from one bit to the next bit, to go forward in space, to go back in space, to go forward in time, to go back in time. In terms of the Haddam, I'll have to defer that to those who know better than I. Yes? Inshallah. And perhaps someone will come and speak to you about that. Inshallah. Does that answer half of your question though?
Yeah, I got another one.
Okay. Let me just check if anyone else has a question before it goes back to you. Does anyone else have any questions? Especially around what we've done. The thing that, when I went to university, which was a long time ago, yes, I had this one concept, this one principle that I would never leave a lecture without understanding. I would never leave a lecture without. So whether there's 5 people in the class or there's 50 people in the class, if I don't understand what's being said, I would raise my hand because I don't understand that. How can I sit somewhere for half an hour or an hour and leave not understanding? That's my hour. That's my time. That's my life. So I'm saying to you, because there should be an expectation. You have people here that are saying that we're portraying, we're trying to teach. So you have that right to say, well, I don't understand, or you haven't given me that, fulfill that expectation. Just like I would do that to a university lecturer. Well, I don't understand what you've said. It's their job to explain to me at my level. So therefore, I'm saying that to each and every single person. Don't do yourself the injustice of leaving without benefiting or understanding. Inshallah. So I'm going to leave it at that. If there's no other questions, then maybe Brother Ramzan, if you...
It's a final question. I know I'm keeping you all too long. It's just I want to know this. You know, when you go to sleep, you dream. I've not seen you touch on that, according to what I've seen and stuff. You've not touched on dreams as much. So when you sleep, your soul travels and goes on a journey. And it's happened to me. I still remember some experiences, which obviously, according to the Quran and according to online research and stuff, I've seen that there's 3 types of dreams. There's the imaginations of what goes on in your day-to-day life, what goes on, and then after you wake up, 5 seconds after, you just forget. And sometimes you do want to recall them, but you can't. It's too hard. And then you've got the other 2, which you remember. One's from the shaitan, which is really bad. It could be a really bad dream, or it could, or there's another dream which is obviously from Allah, they say, and you remember that crystal clear. And when I've wanted prayed Salah, and I've prayed a dua, and I wanted to see something, it has come true in the past, and I have seen it. Now, what I'm trying to ask is, does my soul go to the barzakh where I see my dad? So does it go to the barzakh to see him in barzakh, inside, in that realm?
I understand the
Or
question.
Does it come to this dunya?
Okay, mashallah.
Yeah.
So in that one question, there were about three, but let me see. I'll answer the ones that I can again. So I'm going to use the word spirit as opposed to soul. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, look, the point that the brother made, and this is the entire point of this experience that we're speaking about, that there is a spiritual reality in everything that we do. Yeah. So before I come to dreams, I know I use that example of the toilet. Why? Because it's the most obvious example. That what I'm saying to you is that when the Prophet ﷺ said to Umar radiallahu anh, that when Umar radiallahu anh, the shaitan can't walk the same path, physically and spiritually you have an existence that happens. Yeah, shaitan wasn't joking when he said that I will come to the children of Adam alayhi salam from their right, from their left. He's not joking. It's a reality. That's the bit I can't stress enough, that we say that we believe in these things, but we sometimes forget that there's an entire shaitan that's planning how to get us to commit sin, how to take our souls away, how to distance us from Allah. I said to you that we have Raqib and Atid. I said to you that we have a Qarina. There's a story where the Prophet ﷺ once exited his house to go to Jannat al-Baqi, and Aisha radiallahu anha, our blessed mother, followed him. She thought he might be going elsewhere. When she realised he was going to Jannat al-Baqi, she ran back home. But by that time the Prophet ﷺ had seen her. And when he entered the blessed house, Aisha radiallahu anha was out of breath. You know when someone's breathing. And then the Prophet ﷺ, as she was pretending to be asleep, and the Prophet ﷺ said to Aisha radiallahu anha, perhaps your Qarina took over you. Perhaps your Qarina took over, i.e. that the shaitan or the jinn that invites us took over to you. And Aisha radiallahu anha, and what a blessed mother of ours she is. Because if it wasn't for these interactions, we wouldn't learn what we know now. She goes to the Prophet ﷺ, well, don't you have a Qarina? And he goes, yes, I do. But I've converted mine to Islam. And he only invites me to do good. So what am I saying to you, Brother Ramazan? Having dreams, these spiritual, they absolutely are real. The dreams, but the point I'm saying, you're talking about dreams, I'm saying everything. When you're asleep, you're awake, there's a spiritual reality to what you're doing. Now, where your spirit goes, whether it goes to Brazil, I can't answer that. Yeah. But what I can say to you is, absolutely, that's why they say that before you go to bed, you should do what? Wudu. Why? Because your spirit will go into sujood, into worship Allah. These aren't just things that, our Prophet ﷺ didn't speak from his caprice or his lower desires. What he says is haqq. We believe it to be. So yes, the dreams have an absolute impact. And the more spiritually in tune you become, all these things that I'm talking about, they become more of a reality. You have more focus on your dreams. You'll understand what they mean a lot more. Don't interpret them yourselves. You have people that can help you with that. But in answer to your question, yes, they mean something, and yes, the spirit does travel when someone sleeps. I'm gonna say Subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, only because people need to sleep for the rest of the sessions. That's why. So